Charizard flew over the skies and landed gently on the ground, allowing its trainer and her Lucario to slide off its wing. Its trainer smiled and fed it a cupcake. Good job, Dragon. Dragon roared quietly and devoured the cupcake with a smile. As soon as the fire dragon finished the cupcake, the trainer returned it into its Pokeball. You deserve a nice long rest. The trainer put the Pokeball on her back and looked at her Lucario. It seemed frightened by something. The trainer walked over to her Lucario. Sheldon, what's the matter? Sheldon only whimpered. The trainer realized what was wrong. You don't like this place, do you? Sheldon shook his head and whimpered more. The trainer hugged her Lucario. It's okay. I'm here with you. The Lucario tried to force down the urge to scream, but his voice wouldn't work. Excuse me, miss. Are you a trainer, Caitlin? A young man's voice broke the brief moment of silence. The trainer looked over the young man. Yes, sir, I am. The trainer smiled. It's nice to meet you. It's nice to meet you, then. My name's Brad. I'm sure you've heard of my grandfather, Mr. Fuji. Caitlin nodded. I was told to come here by him from a letter that a Pidgey delivered to me a day ago. I didn't want to hesitate by walking, so I took my Charizard to fly over here as fast as we could get here. Brad nodded. I see. Well, follow me then. I'm sure you've heard about the Lavender town is a ghost town, right? Caitlin nodded. Her Lucario clinged on to her. There's a reason for that due to Lavender town and legends and due to the Lavender town tower and the legends and stories. Brad turned to the younger trainer. And that white hand on your shoulder, he smirked. Caitlin giggled. Very funny. I don't believe in that kind of thing, Brad. He laughed. I figured you'd be scared, but haven't you been here before? Caitlin nodded. As the two entered Mr. Fuji's home, Caitlin noticed that there was a miniature poke farm or poke ranch of some kind. I suppose your grandfather's a caretaker for orphaned and or abandoned Pokemon. Brad nodded. Indeed. My grandfather enjoys Pokemon so much, he takes care of them and keeps them here until a trainer wants to adopt them, since he has tons of volunteers. Caitlin smiled. All the Pokemon seemed happy and comfortable. She then turned to a Cubone. It was huddled up in a corner. It seemed frightened and slightly angry. What's wrong with this one? Brad looked over the little one. It's a baby Cubone. It only trusts my grandfather. Team Rocket killed its mother. Since then, it never trusted anyone but my grandfather. Caitlin's eyes widened. Sheldon's mother was killed by Team Rocket too. Brad looked at Caitlin in shock. Caitlin nodded. The Cubone and Sheldon have that much in common, at least. Only Sheldon hates Team Rocket for everything they stand for. Brad frowned. I'm sorry for you, Lucario's loss. It must have been pretty hard on him. Caitlin nodded. Sheldon walked up to the little Cubone. The little skull Pokemon held the Bone Club tight in its fist. It looked like it was ready to attack. Sheldon suddenly put a paw on the little Cubone's shoulders and slowly lifting the little Pokemon off the ground, cradling it in his arms. I know how you feel, little guy. Was what the Lucario whispered to the bone Pokemon. They both had no mother. They both had the strongest grudge against Team Rocket, and they both knew what they were going through. Later that day, there was a call from Mr. Fuji. Brad picked up the phone and answered it. Caitlin didn't bother to intervene on the phone call. Brad later hung up the phone. He looked over the young female trainer. Halloween's coming up, and my grandfather's throwing a party here. We were wondering if you'd like to come. Caitlin nodded. I'd love to. Is there anything else? Brad nodded. He called some trainers. There's been some strange things going on in the Pokemon Tower. You wouldn't mind going along with the other trainers too, Brad. Don't worry, it's my job, I don't mind. Caitlin interrupted Brad. calling over her Lucario and getting up from her seat. I'll be back in a few hours or so. She headed out into the Pokemon Tower with her Lucario following. The second the two entered the tower, Sheldon shivered in fear, gripping on to his trainer as they walked further into the tower. Caitlin took a deep breath. There was no turning back at this point. She looked at her Lucario, still frightened by his surroundings. Maybe you should stay in your Pokeball for a short while. She took out the ball and returned him inside it. He'd be safer in his Pokeball than out in the tower being spooked by ghosts and ghouls. She continued further and further into the tower. She hurried to the next level with courage in her heart. She hoped that Sheldon would feel the same way soon enough. Meanwhile, 3 other trainers, upon reaching the second level of the tower, the female trainer turned around to the 2 others. Hey, Cal, BQ, did you see where Vincent, Veruca, and Rupert went? BQ only shrugged. Cal kept his eyes on what was behind the gang. Suddenly, the 3 Pokemon darted off past the trainers. It wasn't hard to see that they were frightened by something. The girl trainer grew confused and slightly frightened herself. Where are they running away from? They could have been running from a ghost Pokemon, but it could be wrong, BQ stated. The minute he looked over to what they were running from, his eyes started to widen. Elsia? I think I got the ghost part right. Alicia tilted her head. What do you mean by that? Cal motioned her to turn around. As Alicia did so, her eyes caught sight of only a herd of zombie Pokemon. Not ghost Pokemon, but actual, real zombies. Those aren't ghosts, PQ. They're zombies! Cal shouted in fear. The trainers screamed in horror and they took off running from the seemingly demonic spirits before them. Meanwhile, Veronica Rocket, along with Jessie James and Meowth, and Ginger, the rookie plasma team member, all kept watch over the guy that stood before them. Veronica smirked, knowing that everyone was ready. She turned around to a sound of screaming in horror. What's that? James shivered and hid behind Jessie. It's the ghosts! Ginger rolled her eyes and took a flashlight from her bag. Probably just another intruder or something. I'll go check it out. She walked into the darkness. Caitlin finally made it up the stairs to the first level of the tower. Okay, I can do this. She looked at the Pokeball containing her Lucario. I hope you're just as ready as I am, little buddy. There's no turning back now. She was cut off by Alicia's Pokemon, running past her. The young trainer dodged, not wanting to be crushed or stampled by the stampling trio. Whoa, hey, what's the matter? The 3 hid behind the rears of deceased Pokemon. Caitlin tilted her head in confusion, wondering why they looked so frightened. A sudden scream rang in her ears. She turned around to see 3 other trainers. They ran in fear and screamed in horror. They all trampled upon the young trainer. Will you guys get off me? Caitlin growled. The trainers got off the young trainer. We're sorry. We didn't hurt you, did we? BQ asked concerned. Caitlin shook her head. No, I'm alright. What were you guys running from anyways? A moan was heard in the background. Everyone sputtered around to see a zombie fighter Raichu. BQ pointed at it, shivering in fear. That! Caitlin grew frightened as well. So that means monsters and ghosts are real? Well, let's just get out of here. I'm with you on this, PQ. Alicia and PQ nearly walked out the door, but Cal and Caitlin stopped them. No, we're going to get through this together. We won't let them win. We have to do this, Caitlin reminded them. The two looked at each other, then back at Cal and Caitlin. both sighed. I guess you're right, Lucy answered. Cal nodded to Cal. I'll take care of this, Cal. Cal nodded. I'll let you take care of this, Cal. Cal nodded, calling out what Pokemon he had. His Blaziken, Pyro, was one of the first to attack. A simple flame engulfed the zombie Pokemon, turning it into nothing but ashes on the ground. The others nodded and headed up the stairs as they continued. More and more zombie Pokemon began to rise from the graves and tombstones. It would take more than a simple Blaziken to handle a horde of zombies. Veruga, Fire Punch! Alicia called out at her Infernape. The Infernape did as she was told. Vincent, wanting to lend a helping paw. Vincent wanted to lend a helping paw. He had to help his love from a zombie crunch hanging on her skull and dining on her brain. He used medical on one of the zombies, having to be frightened by what would happen if he didn't help his crush. Rupert helped as well. He didn't want anything horrid to happen to his friends. Caitlin and PQ nodded at each other, knowing what to do now. PQ took out 2 Pokeballs, one of them containing his personal favorite, and tossed them both in the air, a Duat and a Lucario. Ubi, Bone Rush on one half, Jet, Aqua Jet on the other half. Jet, the Duat, wanted to gain his master's love again. Tried as hard as to take down a horde of zombies himself. Ubi had it easier than his water-type rival. He only had to use Bone Rush, taking off the heads of a few or more zombies. Caitlin looked at only one Pokeball containing her Pikachu. She figured Sheldon would be too scared to attack a zombie. She tossed her Pokeball in the air. Her Pikachu seemed to be ready for battle. Sparkles! Thunderbolt! She commanded. Without hesitation, the Pikachu obeyed, striking most of the zombies, easily taking them down. The trainers smiled at one another. Come on, let's keep going. Caitlin shouted in victory as she continued on running as her and the others attacked the horde of zombies, one herd after the other. The rest of the story will be in Caitlin's perspective, while most of it will go on to Sheldon and see what he's thinking. I don't feel so good. I don't feel so good. It smells like death and rotting flesh. Why haven't I been let out yet? I want to get out of here now. Now. Please just let me out of here. I'm feeling sick. I think I'm about to vomit. I could feel the Pokeball shaking and rattling in my bag. Sheldon was getting restless. I could tell he was getting sick by the rotting flesh odor in the air. I couldn't blame him there. It smelled awful. I was never used to the smell of death myself. Suddenly, as the last zombie was down with Libby's final Bone Rush attack, BQ looked at me. That should be the last one. I didn't pay attention. I took my Pokeball out. I took out my Pokeball and looked at it. I didn't know whether to take out Sheldon or not. BQ inched closer. Kate, what's wrong? Is it Sheldon? Yeah. I think he's feeling sick, like he's about to puke. He's not used to the smell of death since. Yeah, well, I'm not fond of the zombie's body odor myself, kid. Ubi cut me off. I sighed heavily. It's not the zombie's body odor. It's the literal smell of death. I looked back at the Pokeball containing my boy. He wasn't the same since his mother. Kyle glanced at me and put a hand on my shoulder. I understand. You know my Deanna's shade, right? He had an abusive trainer. He gone past that after he met Shredder, and part of my interruption, Cal, but that's not it. I mean, it is, but it's far different than abuse. His mom died right in front of him as a baby. A baby Riolu! I snapped. I took a few deep breaths after a short while. I'm sorry. Sheldon and I hold a strong grudge against Team Rocket. I hold a grudge against them because they're evil. I guess you all know why Sheldon holds a grudge against Team Rocket. Everyone nodded. Alicia smiled at me. It's alright. One day he'll be over soon enough. I promise. It's gonna take him longer than just a few years. I nodded. Hey, are we going or what? Pyro asked, eager to move on. Ubi turned to us. Let's go, Slowpokes. I want to get this over with. We all took a deep breath and headed forward. I want to go home. Wait, what's this? This feeling. That aura. I remember that aura. It can't be. Is it? Mama? Once we all stopped at the 4th floor, we were all about to face what horror was ahead. The smell of death riding corpses grew heavier. I swore I was about to throw up, but I managed to hold my lunch down where it belonged. Suddenly a pale fog surrounded the room. I noticed Vincent was holding onto Veruca's arm tightly. Veruca, there wasn't fog here before. Veruca held onto Vincent tightly. I looked at Rupert, Pyro, Ubi, Jet, and Sparkles. I could tell they were all ready for whatever was about to charge at them. Get ready, everyone, I warned. Suddenly there was a shout in the air. Get out! Leave this place! One voice shrieked. Don't come any closer! Another voice warned. Suddenly we were met with what looked like ghosts. The figures were unknown to us. We needed just a few more Pokemon to take these ghosts down. I looked at PQ. PQ, go! We'll be alright. We just find the Silph Scope or something to help us see if that is really a ghost or not. PQ nodded, took off running. Come on, guys! He called out to Ubi and Jet. The two followed their trainer. Elsie looked at me. I'll go with him. Come on, guys! She took off running along with her trio following after her. It was all up to Mink. All up to this point. He called out 3 other Pokemon. Shade, a Mightyena, Shredder, a Grovyle, and Psy, a Kadabra. I called out only one Pokemon that I had, Tarzan, an Infernape. I still thought it'd be too rough for Shelton to take on 2 ghosts. Wait. That is Mom. What are they doing? Why are they doing it? What the heck is going on? I have a right to know. I want out now. Shade, Shadow Ball, Shredder, Bullet Seed, Pyro, Ember, Psychic, Sparkles, Thunderbolt, Tarzan, Match Punch. The 6 Pokemon attacked, but no attack did nothing. Shade looked at Shredder. No matter what attack we use, it doesn't even give it a scratch. Shredder looked at his lover. Shade, we're gonna have to keep attacking in order to be defeated. For it to be defeated somehow. Sparkles looked at the 2 lovers. Well, we keep attacking and nothing happens. Tarzan glanced over at the frustrated Pikachu. We have to keep battling one way or another, Sparkles. Cal and I both grew agitated. Why don't they get hacked or affected? Cal glanced at me and shut his eyes. I don't know. Kate, catch! PQ tossed me a oscilloscope my way. I jumped up in the air and caught it and hurriedly put it on. The ghosts revealed to be a Marowak and Lopunny. It was Sheldon's mother and Cubone's mother. Marowak? The spirit of Cubone's mom? I glanced over at the Lopunny. Daisy. I murmured to myself. Get out! You shouldn't get too close to them, the Marowak warned. Caitlin, please, we're only trying to protect you, Daisy whispered in a honey sweet voice. Suddenly I heard a cry from behind. It was only Cubone, running towards the ghostly figure of its mother. The Marowak lowered her bone and hugged her son tightly, as her son hugged her tightly. The Marowak soon calmed down, knowing her baby was safe once more. She hugged it in a motherly embrace. Sheldon's Pokeball suddenly bursted open. He ran towards the ghostly figure of his own mother, and did the same as the Cubone. Daisy did the same as the Marowak. I chuckled a bit. Well, what do you know? Shade and Shredder grinned at each other. All this time, they were worried about their children. Shredder nodded at Shade's statement. Sheldon whimpered, cuddling to the ghostly figure of his mother. Mama, I'm sorry. Daisy patted her son's head. Don't be sorry. I was protecting you. I was doing what mothers do best. Protecting their sons from certain death. Sheldon sniffled as the two ghosts were finally at peace. They could rest knowing their babies were safe. PQ smiled. All this time they were worried about their kids. He chuckled, picking up the Cubone in his arms. The Cubone cuddled against the wolf-lion hybrid for more comfort. Even though knowing its mother was in a better place watching over her son, he still had to seek comfort from someone. Sheldon howled in mourning and joy. Mourning for his mother, but joyous knowing that she would no longer suffer. I smiled, then turned to PQ. I'm guessing that ginger girl had that silph-scope? PQ nodded. Yeah, she's such a weirdo. Ruby glanced at PQ with little or no amusement or even approval. PQ, you are still the absolute last person to be calling someone a weirdo. I sighed, but I already knew that Ubi had to agree with PQ calling Ginger a weirdo. A major weirdo at that. Our job wasn't done yet. We had to finish it. We moved up to the last floor of the tower. Once we were up on the fifth floor, we noticed Team Rocket, Ginger, and Veronica all laid still on the floor. They weren't dead. They were unconscious. I looked over at PQ. Did Ginger look like that when you encountered her? He shook his head. I tilted my head in confusion. Suddenly something caught the corner of my eye. It was a dead human, or what looked like a human. I was suddenly confused as to why a human would be buried in a Pokemon tower, a cemetery only meant for Pokemon and Pokemon alone. You're here. I'm trapped, it growled. And I'm lonely. So very lonely. Will you all join me? My heart grew heavy. I knew who that was. The buried alive demon. I heard about him in stories that my father used to tell. I'll never join you, you monster! It chuckled maliciously. I had a feeling you would say that. You humans are a pathetic race, as well as you anthropomorphic animals that act like humans. His glare motioned to Sheldon and the baby Cubone. You two. You are both are just as weak. Humans killed your mothers, and yet you side with them. The Cubone whimpered. Sheldon growled heavily. I put that behind me, you stupid demon. Buried Alive laughed, then turned to Shade and Ubi. And you too. You had humans abuse you, and yet you still side with them. You're both are just as weak and pathetic as you were when you were pups. Ubi's heart sank. He remembered what his old trainer had said before he was owned by PQ. Those phrases rang in his mind non-stop, including in his nightmares. We lost because of you! You deserve to suffer! You worthless Riolu! He tried to shake it off, but he couldn't. But he couldn't get the words out of his head. Shade, however, remembered the time when he expressed himself with another Pokemon, a male to be more in detail, and was reminded how his old abusive trainer stabbed him and the other Pokemon, and the pain he felt. Tears swelled up in Shade's eyes. Sheldon growled, "Shut up!" Shade and Ubi couldn't help if they weren't strong enough in battle, and at the time, or that they were born in different sexuality genetic. I'm only 1/25th bisexual, and I understand how Shade feels. And I'm not as strong, I'm not strong in battle, but I understand how Ubi felt when he was real and he couldn't fight as well as other Pokemon. His preaching hushed the demon for a moment. It laughed silently. How else would you know about anything else? He glanced towards Jet. You were your master's first Pokemon, and yet he abandoned you. And yet he abandoned his love for you for a Lucario that he wanted for himself. He no longer wanted you. And soon one day he will abandon you, and you'll be forgotten forever. Jet's eyes narrowed. He fought off the tears. He knew that PQ favored Ubi over him, and he hated the Lucario with a passion, but he knew that PQ would never abandon him. He then turned his final glance to Veruca and Vincent. And finally you too. Your mother died long ago, and you have no memory of her or your worthless father. And the Lucario's parents no longer wanted him and is afraid of his own shadow, yet he tries to impress their own master. That is a new kind of love that I have seen in all my life. Sheldon snapped, That's enough! I'm flipping Hannah with you! I saw that he was infuriated and with a blinding rage. All we could do for now was watch and see what horror would behold us. Bird Light howled in laughter. You think you can defeat me? His body melted into a thick black substance of mist, turning him into a demonic-looking Lucario. So be it. I knew what had to be done. I stepped up, wanting to give the commands to battle the demon, but I was only stopped by Ubi. Hey, what the heck, Ubi? He glared at me. Let him do what he has to. Okay, kid? I opened my mouth to protest, but then closed it. Knowing that if I protested against him, I'd get nothing but an argument. I sighed. Oh. Okay. I stepped back to see what would happen. Sheldon used every attack he knew. Buried Alive dodged each and every one, then used a move that seemed almost too ghastly to be real. Nightmare. It was the only move used when a Pokemon was asleep, but in this case, It wasn't used when Sheldon drifted off into a drowsy slumber. It was used when he was awake. The minute the attack was used, his eyes were void of fear. His breathing grew heavier and heavier. I gasped and tried to go towards him, but Ruby and Tarzan held me back. "Sheldon! Sheldon! Sheldon!" I shouted, trying to get his attention. No answer. I grew worried and afraid. There was no light of hope for me to be found. It was all over. I shut my eyes to outsee the horror before me. I suddenly heard a laugh. It was more like a child's laugh, but in a young man's voice. Was it Sheldon? Laughter grew more audible with every breath it sucked in. It was Sheldon. I opened my eyes to see what stood before me, and the others. No one moved. Everyone stood like the weeping angels in Doctor Who. Only no one moved. They all just stood still. Sheldon stood on his hind legs in an awkward manner. He looked like a werewolf. He was a werewolf. He was born a werewolf. No, a werewolf. My eyes widened. Did you really think you could set fear into my heart with one small, simple attack? Do you even know the meaning of fear? He walked towards Buried Alive. I was surprised to see bravery in Sheldon's heart and feared to be buried alive. You think you know fear? He jumped and pounced on the demon. I'll show you true terror. Buried Alive began to choke. What are you? Sheldon chuckled deeply in his throat. I'm your worst nightmare. Before I could see what would happen, everything suddenly went black. I woke up gasping for breath. Seeing myself in Brad's room, PQ and Elsie were standing at my left side. Guys, what happened? Where's Sheldon and the others? Are they all right? You blacked out. They're already at the party, and yes, everyone's fine. Don't worry. Alicia smiled. I grinned widely and hugged them both tightly. Did you see that? Yeah. It turns out Sheldon's ancestors were monsters called werewolf. Turns out you tamed him pretty well, except when in battle. PQ interrupted. I chuckled a bit. Well, that's my Sheldon for you. I looked around. What happened to the Pokemon Tower, by the way? The two looked at each other. They weren't smiling, but they both sighed. Alicia looked at me. Well, the floor where the entrance is was kinda burnt like toast. But they were decorating it, and some of the graves where we fought the zombies at were burnt a little bit too. But it wasn't severe. They said it was only a minor burnt, PQ added. I sighed in relief and hugged them both once more. Well, we won't have to worry about that anymore. What do y'all say we go to that party? The two smiled and headed off towards the party. Hey, wait up! I followed them without hesitation. Sheldon nuzzled his head against the cubone skull. Vincent smiled. Ruby looked over at the other orphan and abandoned Pokemon. They looked happy to be in Mr. Fuji's home for Pokemon. He looked back at Sheldon and Vincent. Well, I see he's got this under control. I'll just leave him to it, and I'll be on my way to that party. He headed off with Vincent following. I'm coming with you. We'll wait for you, Sheldon. Sheldon nodded. His ears suddenly perked up to a voice. He looked around, wanting to know where it was coming from. He shrugged. Could it have been his imagination playing tricks on him? It could have been his imagination playing tricks on him. Or it could have been the spirits of the marrow, like his mother saying, We love you, boys. We miss you. Okay, guys, I hope you liked that fan pasta that I made. Special shoutouts to PQRJ, Tamara Frog, aka Behind TG, and Ruby of Blue with their series of Random Doom, The Epic Adventures of PQ and Newbie, and Pokemon Manifestive Heart. And also, I hope you guys have a happy Halloween, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye! Happy Halloween! Boys and girls of every age, wouldn't you like to see something strange? Come with us and you will see. This is our town of Halloween. In this town we call home. Everyone hail to the pumpkin song. La 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 la. Happy Halloween.